The love of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan propelled him to pick up the mantle of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad again and begin the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam.
Look at the wise way God and the messenger guided the rebuilding of the nation. That's not Farrakhan. That's Elijah. That's God present with us. Look at these clean brothers. Look at their faces. Look at them. Don't they look like the old soldiers of Muhammad? All right. Who raised them up? Shut up, minister. Who made these men? Muhammad that made them. Who put them sisters back in their white robes? It's Muhammad that did that. Talk about it. Who lifted the flag back up again? That's Muhammad that did that, brother and sister.
So I want to welcome you all back to our program where we're going to be joined by our brother, Student Minister Nuri Muhammad, and we're working on to resolve some technical issues with our brother, Carlos Muhammad. So stay tuned. Well, let's welcome our brother who is on, Brother Nuri Muhammad from Mosque number 74. Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Willie. It is an honor and a privilege to share space and time with you, mighty warrior, today.
Oh, praise is due to Allah. The same is with you as well. So let's get right to it, my brother. And this is a question I'm waiting to hear your response to this one. You know, how would you say, because we're talking about the 64 year history of the ministry of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and all of the factors that have gone into make it, right? So how would you say that his wife, Mother Khadija Farrakhan, and his mother have impacted and shaped the 64-year ministry of our minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan?
Wow. Well, I believe that, of course, that old saying that behind every strong black man is a strong black woman, it should be modified a little bit, not behind, but beside every strong black man, there has always been a strong black woman. And in the appraisal of the value of both of these two females in the life of God's servant, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I think that looking at his personal assessment and what he's given us as feedback to their value would be the most important and best way to answer that question. Simply put, the minister called Mother Khadija the wind beneath his wings. Wow. And when he said it, I've heard him say it 4 times. And I thought about that, Brother Willie. I thought about that verse in the Holy Quran where Allah talks about what happens to a brother or sister when they meet the truth from the Messiah. And in the Nuri translation, it says that you are taught the Torah, the gospel. You're taught the book and the wisdom. You're taught what foods to eat. And it says in the Nuri, and you put on wings and become a flyer. So it is the wisdom and the way of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad that has absolutely given the minister his wings. But you need some wind beneath those wings in order for that which you have as wings to allow you to fly and in fact soar. Wind beneath the wings of an eagle, wind beneath the wings of a bird makes flying much easier than it would be without it. And I believe that that is the kind of beautiful woman that Mother Khadija has been for the minister. She has been that kind of woman that has made flying much easier for him. And of course, his mother, that sacred chamber that Allah chose in 1933 to bring birth to this most beautiful man. And she, of course, under circumstances, thought about and even attempted to abort the child that was in her womb 3 times. But she knew then this was a special child that was chosen by Allah, because she did everything she could to make sure that he wasn't here. And of course, she came into the contact of the knowledge of not just the greatness of her son in the traditional parent role, but she accepted him as the servant of God that was worthy to be believed in, supported, and followed. And she became a Muslim follower of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and her son, the great mother Sumaya Muhammad.
Wow. Thank you, my brother. And I had this opportunity to ask our brothers who were on during the first segment, Brother Abdul, Qiyam Muhammad, and Brother Demetric Muhammad. And I'll ask you the same. What do you see as the significance of us highlighting this 64-year history or anniversary of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan being a minister as appointed by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Just the mathematics alone is sufficient. What did you say, brother? What did you say? 64 years?
64.
I started playing with that in real time just a few minutes ago, waiting to come into this side from the green room. Do you know my mother was not born 64 years ago? My grandmother was 13. My great grandmother was only 27 years old. Think about that.
Wow.
So anytime that you find anyone, in fact, in any profession, that's been able to last in that craft for 64 years, they would be celebrated. However, the work of the resurrection of the dead, the work of the establishment of the kingdom of Islam and the way of God on the planet is not like tennis or basketball or art or playing an instrument or singing a song. This is the hardest job ever given to a human being. And you watched a man, and we're watching a man that has been doing it for 64 years and has taught 8 generations of people. And yet he's indefatigable. He's not tired. He's not worn out. It's not ill affected his spirit. Surely that's worthy of being respected, honored more than any other person that becomes a veteran in another craft. This man has been the messenger of God among us, dealing with the most wicked enemy that has ever walked the face of the planet Earth. And look at his face, look at his smile, look at his skin, listen to his tone, and watch how he moves, operates, and feel that man's spirit. I think that alone makes it worthy for us to have this discussion.
Beautiful. And thank you for your response, my brother. And we're now joined by our brother Carlos Muhammad from the great city of Baltimore, Maryland. So, assalamu alaikum, brother Carlos.
Wa alaikum salam, my brother. How are you doing?
I'm good, my brother, and thank you for joining us. And you're right on time, because my next question is actually for you. You know, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he was equipped with the right material to take on the mission that was given to him by Master Farrakhan Muhammad. Can the same be said to be true about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when it comes to his ministry? So, what does the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan possess that has prepared him for his ministry?
Well, when we look at our beloved leader and teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in reference to his teacher in this statement of right material, this past July 4th, at this monumental address called the Criterion, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan revealed to us and to the world that Master Fard Muhammad was shaping him in the womb of his mother. And so what our beloved student minister Nuri Muhammad just talked about that blessed womb of Mother Samia Farrakhan and what she attempted to do under extreme circumstance, now the minister is letting us know that the Savior was right there controlling the situation. So therefore, he's also shaped and made of a certain material that made him for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and made him for us in this unique and specific time. As my brother just said, we're at the height of Satan's rule. And so the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is being used by Master Fard Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to bring Satan down. So yes, he's made of a special material for this day and time, and definitely was made of special material for his teacher.
Beautiful. And thank you, Brother Carlos, for that response. And I'll go back to our brother Nuri. I'd like to ask you this question. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, after hearing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as an FOI captain, would later invite him to dinner. And it was at that dinner, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad got up and began to start greeting the guests. And she told the minister, he said that you remind me of David. So my question to you is, what do you see as being a correlation between the speaking ability of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and his ministry to that of David that we read about in both the Bible and the Holy Quran?
Wow. Well, thank you much for that question. And I'm glad we have Brother Carlos, our national archivist, online, because he knows the calendar breakdown. He knows what day of the week and what the weather was on the day when the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad did this. And this day, according to the minister, Brother Willie, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, according to the minister, he said, I watched the Honorable Elijah Muhammad do something this day that I never seen him do again. And that was get up and walk around the table and greet each of his guests at his table, which means that more than likely he was engaging in this act of greeting all the guests so that he could get to the ear of the guest that he wanted to put something in his mind to let him know who he was looking at, so that the man that he told this to would be able to see himself properly. And when he got to the minister, he whispered in his ear and told him, you remind me of David. Of course, when you take the template of the scripture and the work and the description and characteristics of David, you see them present and perfected in the minister. David played a harp, a string instrument. David was a great warrior. David was a messenger of God. David became the king and the ruler. But bigger than all of that, in my humble opinion, Brother Willie, yes, the minister plays a violin. That's a string instrument. Yes, he is without question the warrior of all warriors. And yes, he's a messenger of God, and he's a king and a ruler sitting in the seat of his father, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as the father of the house. However, the chief characteristic, the most important characteristic about David, according to the theologians, is that David was a man that is said to have had the heart of God. The minister fulfills that. He's a man that has not just unshakable faith and insane focus and greatness of speech, but he also has unconditional love. And that love that you see in the minister that allows him to always listen and try to hear the people of God and feel what they feel, and then think about how God feels about what he feels when he sees the people of God, and to act on it in spite of our ignorance, shows that he is, without question, the full manifestation and perfected version of that man that is called David in Scripture.
Yes, sir. And our brother Carlos is experiencing some technical difficulties, but that gives me a chance to go to another question that we have prepared that we would like you to respond to. So, in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's 64-year history of his ministry, how do you see the study guides the self-improvement study guides? How do you see their role? Or what do they indicate or say about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's 64-year ministry and his evolution during this time?
Well, you know, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan delivering a radio broadcast on behalf of him and our nation.
Mm.
And in this particular broadcast, you know where I'm going, Brother Willie, he was talking about the true history of Jesus.
Mm.
And the minister was reciting the true history of Jesus exactly the way the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad had taught us the true history of Jesus, that now you can find in a small book. At that time, though, was in many articles that were written in our newspaper. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad told the minister, he said, I did not raise you to recite in so many words the histories as I taught it. I want you to go into those histories. And that jewel, that nugget, that request from the servant of God in the fertile mind of a man that loves his teacher exploded then and exploded even greater later, in my opinion.
Wow.
And what we are looking at with the study guides, we are looking at the deeper teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, where it takes the devil and the opponent of God within self and goes in and teaches us how to really exorcise the demons within self that an exterior enemy will never be able to affect us.
Mm.
So I think that it is that. And you know what messed me up?
What's that?
Is that the whole study guide 1 through 18 is the product of one lecture.
Wow.
You didn't hear me.
That's a good point.
In Phoenix, Arizona, the minister delivered a message called Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development. And he taught study guide 1 through 18 in one lecture.
Mm.
And that shows us that he is what we should know him to be, and what he said of himself. He is really the trumpet of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the mouthpiece of God. Because no one could have ever been able to put such a profound entire curriculum together
In one
in
lecture.
a message that became 18 study guides at that time, now 21.
Yes, sir.
That becomes a tool in our hand to be able to exorcise the demons of self.
Wow. Thank you, brother, for sharing that insight. And now we'll go back to our brother Carlos, and we want to continue to talk about this evolution of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan through his 64-year ministry. So it was interesting, Brother Carlos, as we had the opportunity to talk. You said in your studies that you noticed an evolution related to the minister's oratory ability. So can you share with us more on this?
Absolutely. One of the things that I paid attention to when we look at the span of the minister's ministry starting back in 1957 and of course to now, is that from that point that he came into the nation and began to be guided and taught and seen by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad prayed for a little helper, and he got it in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So the trials, the tribulations, the tests, the, if you will, the building up breaking back down, building up stronger, breaking back down. This is kind of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing to our beloved. He was taking him through a regimen because ultimately the minister would have to come out of the state of mind of being a temple or just a mosque minister, that he eventually had to grow into who he was to be at a time in the absence of his teacher. So when I looked at Savior's Day 81, the minister's flow, if you will, still sounded like many of the lectures that we could hear when he was the minister in New York. But slightly after that, Allah blessed the minister, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was lifting him in such a way that his oratory shifted. And the voice became, he was always bold for his teacher, but he was becoming bold in a way that was attracting new life to this rebuilding of the Nation of Islam. And what do I mean? What the minister was talking about and the insight that Allah blessed him to have at that time on these college campuses and many other arenas that he was talking to now was attracting young people. He was attracting now our generation into the mix. And so we can see just through listening to I have a message from 1958 of his. And you can hear how young his voice was at that time as a 23-year-old, you know. And then you watch in the 60s, you can see the evolution of the flow of that. And he said that Malcolm X influenced him a lot, that you could tell the way that he did that. He was taught and trained by Malcolm in those scenarios. And then in the 70s, you see another shift and another elevation, also due to the fact of these radio broadcasts that he had to do for 29 minutes and 30 seconds. All of this was factors. But when you look at the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and this rebuilding, you come through the 80s, and then we get into the 90s and the 2000s, and even right now to this moment, we see the force and power of God coming through the voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir. So, my brother, we're almost to our first break before doing this segment, but I want to ask you this one question before Brother Nuri had the opportunity to respond to it. And I would like to hear your insight on it as well. How would you say that Mother Khadija Farrakhan, the wife of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and his mother have impacted and shaped his 64-year ministry of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Brother Carlos? And we have about a few more minutes, and after that, we'll go to our break.
Yes, sir. Well, when I think of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan shared with us in terms of the impact of his mother in his life from early childhood, we can see that she was a mother that was focused now that she had these sons, that despite her circumstance and condition and maybe the lack of having, she was going to do everything in her power to make her children productive and great. And so because of that, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan grew up in a household and in a community that demanded a certain type of respect, especially for elders, especially for women. And so his mother's rearing of him already put in the minister a certain profound love and respect for women. And as it relates to him growing up and getting older, we see that same thing now when he eventually marries his childhood sweetheart. And to know that the respect that his mother put in him for women, for elders, and for people in general, we know that God put in him a certain love for humanity, maybe even before the minister really understood what that was. And so he told us of Mother Farrakhan, Khadija Farrakhan, that without her, she really helped the Honorable Elijah Muhammad make the minister into a man. He said this to us. He said the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was making him into a man, but Mother Khadija helped really make him into a man because of how she handled him as he was growing. See? And so we can see the beauty of having women in our life, and this is in the life of the prophets. He's no different. that God has always put women in the lives of prophets to balance out situations, because ultimately every prophet and messenger starts one way, but evolves through the process to get to where it is that Allah desires. And the minister has been a beautiful example of how to treat our women, how to respect our women. And I close with this. I remember being in Washington, D.C. With him, and he impromptu came to the mosque after speaking at Willie Wilson's church, Union Baptist Church. And while he was talking, Mother Farrakhan was reaching out to let him know that she had watched him at church. And from that scenario, the minister says to the audience, to the brothers, he says, I wish and pray that Allah blesses you all with a wife like Mother Khadija Farrakhan, who is still here supporting and checking on the minister. And supporting him still yet in his ministry. And that kind of support, and if you will, being that number one fan. and all of us that are in this work, we should pray and we should desire and take a look at that in respect to our own wives who have stuck by us as we've had to grow, evolve, and continuing to grow and evolve in this mission.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful responses by both of you all. Sometimes I forget that I'm actually doing an interview. So we're approaching our first break during this segment. So we're going to pause from some brief announcements from our sponsors. But coming back, family, we're going to hear from our brother Nuri Muhammad and brother Carlos Muhammad again as we continue to highlight the 64th anniversary of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's ministry. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Classes begin September 1st. To enroll, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.
64 years later, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is still bringing the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to millions of people throughout the world, as witnessed last year on July 4th.
Two hands that made the man that's standing in front of you today. Two minds fashioned his mind. Two minds fashioned his heart. So when it comes to the definition of discrimination, the definition of a standard by which God measures, a criterion. That's what you saw in all the ads, a criterion. I am not a braggadocious, arrogant human being. I am so glad that he guided me so gently over time that when I finally came into the true knowledge of who I am and what is my purpose in this life, that I could accept it and not be bowled over by it. He's presenting me to you, to the world today, as the man that the two of them made.
Wow. And we'll come back right with this question. We'll start with you, Brother Nuri. On September the 17th, 1981, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had a very transformative experience, which he's come to talk about and tell us about often, publicly and privately. From your perspective, we'll do from your perspective, how has this experience shaped his ministry?
Did you say September 17th?
Yes.
It wasn't 1981 though, was it?
1980. No, not 1980. 1987.
1987.
Right? Yes,
right.
Sir. Thank you.
Well, of course, this more than a vision experience. Whenever when the servants of Allah have taken up an assignment that puts them into harm's way with the enemy, and of course puts them at odds with many of those that think that they know, then he begins to reach out for comfort and consolation from the source, and the only source that he can get it from, and that is Allah God himself. So it was during that time period that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was teaching and blazing, and was in need of confirmation from his teacher. And he received that while he was in Mexico, and a more than a vision experience. And from that day, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, if you break down what he tells us about what happens, and we don't have time to go into all of it today, but you should get the little thin book from store.finalcall.com called The Announcement, and you'll be able to get his words. But he talks about in the experience that a scroll came down and then went away. And it was as if the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad had wrote on what we call in the lessons official paper, which is the brain cell, a special coating in the mind of his minister, that he would be able to not just have regular vision like a regular person, which is insight, seeing the present, or hindsight, looking back in the past, but he would be gifted with foresight, the ability to see into the future. And thus from there, he was able to tell what was going to happen to Libya and Muammar Gaddafi under Reagan before it ever took place. He was able to show what was going to happen in America with the US government's attack on Black youth. And from that day, every monumental move that the minister has made has been from the seed planted in his mind on this day, September 17th. And there actually is a scripture that talks about this September 17th experience inside of the Bible. Mm-hmm. It's in the book of Ezekiel, the 17th chapter, and there's a reference in there to a particular figure called the Son of Man. And it says in the 8th chapter, then on September 17th, during the 6th year of King Jehoiachin's captivity, while the leader of Judah left the home, and you can go through all of that, but at a certain point, it speaks upon him being taken and spirit form lifted into the sky and transported to Jerusalem in a vision from God.
Yes, sir.
This was written thousands of years in advance, but fulfilled by the one that is the Son of Man of this moment in time, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes,
so
sir.
that's the foundation for most of, if not all, of the monumental moves of the minister.
Thank you, my brother. And I like how you had that scripture right on demand, right to pull it. And that date, brothers and sisters, I made the incorrect, the year September the 17th, 1985. And we'll go to our brother Carlos. Brother Carlos, you are the National NOI Archivist, as stated publicly by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I want to ask you a two-part question as it relates to some influences on the minister's ministry? And I might add another part in this too, but what influence would you say that Malcolm X has had on the ministry of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and two, the impact of his time, the minister's time as serving as the minister of Mosque number 7, how that has had an impact? And when you said something about how the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan looked at the ministers and said, I wish you all had a wife like Mother Khadijah, it made me think about something I heard him say at the table. He looked at the ministers and said, I wish you all had a captain like Captain Yusuf Shah. So what would you say were the influences of those three factors on the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's ministry?
Absolutely.
I know that's a lot.
If I could, I'd just like to add to what Student Minister Nuri just said in terms of your question to him concerning,
yes, sir,
the more than a vision experience from 1985. After the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, I believe in 2016, delivered that monumental message at the Watergate Hotel, we were blessed to sit with him after that, and he asked us what we thought. And because he actually went over the experience right in the press conference. And of course, we know over the years, whenever he would tell us about the experience, it was the same way every single time he said it. And we all had to tell him what we thought. And I said, well, you know, Brother Minister, it's interesting about that scroll. I said, because it's as you stated, it's as if he wrote something on your heart that has been unraveling over time or unpacking over time. And this is what happened with the revelation of the Quran. But that it was given to the prophet all at once. The Quran itself says that it was given to him in parts over the 23-year period. Well, we don't argue that point, but it's clear that circumstances and situations caused verses of the Quran to be revealed at specific points due to circumstances and time. And we've watched that with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as Brother Nuri just said. He might intend to make a step, but then it's revelation coming down. And I said that, dear Minister, your September 17th is like Laylatul Qadr, or the night of majesty, the night of decree, when the Quran began to be revealed. And he smiled and laughed. He said, and you know what? And a new Muhammad was born for this time on September 17th, 1985. So that was the confirmation that continuance of revelation in that form through an experience of being in a cave, and also the night journey or the night flight of the prophet, peace be upon him, from the sacred mosque to the remote mosque in Jerusalem, which we see the turmoil going there at this time. So I just wanted to add that
Thank you.
to that September 17th, 1985 experience. But talking about Malcolm X's influence, the minister has been very, very clear and open over the years about the impact of Malcolm. Most recently, he said that when you see some of these pictures, like that one right there, he said that though he was a minister, he loved Malcolm so much, he was willing to take a bullet for him. He was willing to give his life for Malcolm. And he never wanted to see anything happen to Malcolm, because he knew that Malcolm X was the number one minister in health, the Honorable, that his relationship with Malcolm was preparation for him. And that's why when the drama began, Malcolm riding in the car with him said, brother, I wish it was you being an example for me than me being an example for you, because my enemies are going to become your enemies. And so we know the minister eventually lived that. The way and the style of teaching, the minister said, Malcolm X, the way we teach today, you, Brother Willie, Minister Nuri, all of us have some in us because Malcolm X's influence on the younger ministers at that time, the pointing the finger, the phrasing, is that right, is Malcolm X, Minister Farrakhan says. Minister Farrakhan said the cadence by which we teach, is Malcolm X's cadence. It's Malcolm X that coined the phrasing, the Messenger Muhammad teaches us, Mr. Muhammad teaches us. That's all Malcolm X's influence on the ministry class of the Nation of Islam at that time. And of course, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I close with this. When I was blessed to show the minister, you showed the clip in the first hour from Ministers from Black Soul 1971. And when I showed the minister this in an intimate moment after him wanting to see it for so many years, pointed out in that portion of the interview with Tony Brown, as well as he was in the street, he said, oh, that's Malcolm right there. That's Malcolm X right there. And I said, Malcolm X? He said, yes, the cadence, the style, the rhythm, that's Malcolm X. Such a beautiful leader and teacher we have, to be so transparent about influences on his life and ministry. Lastly, and was there a question? The question was there. What was there? A middle question?
The other two, if you can quickly respond to these. The other two was the influence of him being a minister over Mosque number 7, the impact of that on his ministry, and having a captain like Yusuf Shah. And we'll, after you respond to that, then we'll go to the next question with our brother Nuri.
Well, just quickly, that's a whole nother topic about Mosque number 7. But let's be clear. He sent, when the Elijah Muhammad sent his minister to New York City, the minister didn't go there with a mosque to even go into, because they had firebombed the main temple in Harlem. So he went there, as he said to me and a few others one time, said when he got there, he had to find the Muslims for the most part, that they were in Brooklyn, they were meeting in Brooklyn, but they didn't have a mosque in Harlem. And the credibility, the drama of what happened was there. And he said he had to find some good brothers that was willing to walk the streets of Harlem and Brooklyn and the boroughs to go out and teach the teachings and get the credibility and the trust factor back after what the enemy had created. And from 1965 to 1969 were 4 hard years that the minister had to reestablish our credibility in New York, as well as the reopening of the new temple that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad rebuilt from the burnt out ashes of building where we were meeting, as well as the times to cover the opening of the school, put the minister in a light that the teachings were very strong again in New York City. He said of that Tony Brown Black Journal episode, it was the first broadcast that put him out in the national light outside of New York, but it was also putting a light on New York and the work that was being last 69, 75. Now you have 18 mosques in New York City. They ran the alphabet from Mosque 7 to Mosque 7T. 4 Muhammad Universities of Islam, 10,000+ followers, businesses all over the city, all because of the voice, the strength, and the spiritual upliftment of the believers in that city. New York absolutely was, in fact, the heart of the Nation of Islam for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his followers. So I close with Yusuf Shah. The minister knows that without a good captain, and he said he wished we all could have a good captain like this. You know why? Because he said that Yusuf Shah, one of the reasons was Yusuf Shah was a man maker. Prior to him being a minister, you see how quick he was thrusted into being a lieutenant just after he got registered. Yusuf helped make him and shape him into a man, right? But in the labor, Yusuf Shah was a great help to him, because Yusuf Shah knew that he technically was not a minister or a spiritual man like Minister Farrakhan. So he knew he had a good teacher to teach people in the mosque and in the city and eventually around the country. And therefore, it wasn't a love, so to speak. They bumped heads naturally in the work, but the minister never had a captain that was thinking that he was a better minister than him. See, and that can happen when you have somebody that thinks they can teach better than the teacher. And even if you can, that's not the position that you're serving in. It is to teach and train and carry the programmatic thrust after the word in the teaching of the Honorable had delivered us absolutely to elevate places, because the energy and spirit coming from our brother has yet to be matched.
Be to a lot. Thank you for that response, my brother. So much in it. And I'll go to our brother Nuri, and then we'll come back to Brother Carlos with another question as well. So, Brother Nuri, in the life of Jesus as written in the New Testament, we see that his ministry began with somewhat of a very narrow focus, right? And then it expanded to a more inclusive and a more global one. So do you see any current or future, even current or future similarities with the ministry of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which we are talking about today, and that of what we read about in Jesus in the New Testament?
Quick answer, yes. But the reality is this, Brother Willie, when Jesus, and really when all of the servants of God were first commissioned, most messengers, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, were not sent, but were raised. And whenever a messenger is raised, he comes up out of a people that he is to be the guide and the example for. So the first phase of the assignment of any messenger or prophet is always nationalistic to his specific people that he is one of. But as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, he said from his own mouth that my message is to become universal. So he's saying that right now, the way that I'm teaching it, it is exclusive for my own people, but at a certain point, it is to become universal. So Jesus, it was no contradiction whenever the disciples was first being activated. He told them, look, go ye not unto the Samaritans, go ye not unto the Gentiles, but go ye only to the lost sheep of the lost people of the house of Israel. Then later on, he's meeting with the same disciples that he just told that to some years back, and told them, look, go ye into the highways and the byways and go into all of the worlds. So that assignment expanded with Jesus, and it expanded with all the servants of God. And it is true that the message to the black man is ultimately the message to all of the people of the planet, yet to become universal when the most honorable Elijah Muhammad was speaking among us. But now he's still speaking through his servant, and it is at that time now where it can in fact become that universal message that in every nook and cranny of not just America, but every nook and cranny of the face of the planet Earth, there is a powerful representative of the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad in the minister, and he has the most effective way of not just explaining, but exempling the teaching that, as all the prophets in the past have tried to be able to undo devil, this one that's teaching among us today, if even the devil would listen to him and practically apply that which he is teaching, then they could in fact too undo devil. So it is at that phase now. It is at that time where it is universal now. We've spent a lot of time going ye only to the lost sheep of the house of Negroes. I mean, the house of Israel. But now everybody needs the truth and the opportunity to accept or reject it. And that's the time that we're living in.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The house of Negroes. So we're getting to this question. This is probably going to take us to the end of the broadcast. And this is to Brother Carlos. You know, in the 70s, the New York Police Department raided the mosque. And as a result, the community came out to the support of the Muslims and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, right, against the police. Now we see the enemy's attempts to have the community turn against the minister. They are failing. And now not just people in New York, but all around the country and around the world come to support the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and they will not forsake him. What is it about the ministry of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that continues to cement his position in the heart of the Black community as it took place also in New York during that time?
When we look at 1970s Harlem, we're talking about the Mecca of Black America at that time in New York City. But we were also at the height of the opioid or heroin epidemic, or cities like York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, all up down the East Coast and throughout the country, but specifically in Harlem. And so in the midst of that type of situation where the scourge of heroin was so heavy, but yet the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad coming from his national representative, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, was transforming the lives of those junkies. When you go to the Soul interview from 1970 with Mr. Ellis Hazlett, and the minister stands Brother Raymond 17X up as an example of what the teachings could do for those that were hooked on drugs. Raymond, at that time, prior to becoming a Muslim, was one of those brothers hanging around that area where the temple was. And they kept trying to fish him in, and they came because he was one of the worst junkies out there. But eventually he came. And as a result of getting that one man that appeared to be the worst, he went back and got more of those brothers that he used drugs with, and they became good Muslims. So the ministers walking through the community on Fridays to sit with the junkies, talk with the junkies, as we saw in Ministers for Black Souls. That wasn't something that he just did because Tony Brown was there. Tony Brown was just witnessing what the minister consistently did for those people in Harlem by going out there and not judging them, smoke being blown in his face, people bumping into him, but yet he didn't miss a beat with delivering a message and salvation to them from his teacher. And so as a result, when the police department on a bogus, phony call claiming that an officer was in need of assistance attacked our mosque, the people responded because not only were they angry that they attacked the Muslims who they knew was a jewel in the midst of that hell in Harlem, hell up in Harlem. They wanted to know, and they weren't going to stop throwing bricks and turning cars over. They knew Minister Louis Farrakhan was okay. And do you know that when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he went out to see the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made the laborer stand, and he stood. I have this on the tape. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, "Let us all salute the laborer and my minister from number 7 on fighting back the enemy when they attacked." Wow. He gave the minister a salute because 10 years prior, our temple in Los Angeles, number 27, where our first martyr, the classmate, high school classmate and friend of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Ronald T.X. Stokes, was our first martyr of Islam, where the police shot and killed him and shot and maimed many of our followers out there. And as a result of that, by the time the New York, that was a different episode, brother. Way different episode, because you just wasn't going to attack us with our children in school, and we weren't going to fight you back. And so everything that the enemy had tried then up until now to turn the people in the mass against Farrakhan, Farrakhan said it to us many years ago. Farrakhan is deep down to the unborn generations. So you can't kill me. You would climb up a ladder high enough to cut my blessings off from where they come, and you certainly won't destroy my spiritual seed or my physical seed, because now it's generational and it's deep down into the unborn generations. So that's the power of the pedagogy of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and the social scientists are in a rage because they have to bear witness that he's operating on a higher power that they have no force or control over.
Beautiful, beautiful. And brother, we thank you all, yourself, Brother Carlos, and our brother student minister, Nuri Muhammad. And we also thank our guests from our first segment, Brother Abdul, Qiyam Muhammad, and our brother Demetric Muhammad, for you all taking the time out of your busy schedules on this Monday to come and speak about the 64-year ministry of our dear minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So we thank each of you all, brothers, and may Allah continue to bless you and your families and the work that you are doing for our nation and for our ministers. And we also thank you all who are watching for joining us today and tuning in into National Network View. Please subscribe and share your thoughts with us. And we want to commend all of those who have helped National Network View to reach a milestone, 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube page. So we thank you. But we also want you, if you can do us a favor, to get other people to subscribe to NNV and make sure you watch the daily broadcasts that are taking place live online from your national network. It's a news network, brothers and sisters. So thank you. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. As I already said, this is your brother Willie Muhammad with National Network View News. Peace.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.